And in telling people exactly how what profile is, I would also tell David Palmer to introduce himself and also tell the audience exactly what kind of his career was in the last 2 decades. Over to you, David.
Um, Hi, Akhil. First of all, I'd like to say what a pleasure it is
Thank you.
to be invited to this forum to speak to the future of the world, right? It is an honor because I see the young people who are in university. I see the young people who are in university now as the future. And growing up in a unique time, when I was growing up, and Akhil, I think I'm a bit older than you, right? So when I was growing up,
Sure.
it was the beginning of mobile. Through the 80s, we had a phone and we had 4 channels on our TV, and there was no iPad. In fact, I had the first personal computer that was bought for me when I was younger, called the Tandy TRS-80. I remember it now, and I used to have to load programs in via a magnetic tape, and I used to have to program everything myself. And then in university days, it was the launch of the mobile phone. Then From a career point of view, I was involved. I was lucky enough with British Telecom to be involved in the rollout of broadband or DSL technology, which was a massive thing because before that it was lease lines and other sort of mechanisms, but you didn't have much. You didn't have much internet capacity in the home, right? You certainly didn't have much internet capacity in mobile. Um, and then I've been involved in fiber, I've been involved in IoT, I've been involved in 3G, 4G, now 5G. So I've been lucky enough to do that. But the point I'm making is that the generation that we're speaking to today, right? All of you on the call are growing up in a time where the boundaries of opportunity are being reset. At a time when technology is lowering access to opportunity. You have AI, the biggest headline of the year so far, generative AI, open AI, chat GPT, which can tool you to compete with whole industries, right, as an individual. You have the metaverse, which removes geography. You can be in India, you can be in Africa, you could be in any part of the world as an individual, and you are going to be able to attend classes, meetings, workplaces from where you are, if you have the talent, if you have the tooling. You have blockchain, which is connecting and automating the world in ways that have never been done before. You have cloud. You have all of these technologies. You have fast mobile. 8 billion people have a mobile phone. When I was growing up, it wasn't any of that. But you are the golden generation, and your task will be to put all of these things together in applications and business solutions that can change the world. If we look at Google, if we look at Uber, if we look at all of these massive brands, some of them are just over 10 years old. And I believe that there's going to be an explosion of new brands, and you could be one of them. So that's I don't know if I've gone off script there, but that's the first thing I wanted to say. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you at this time because I believe in this forum we may have one of the future leaders. The second thing is just a bit about me. So I've described some of the things I've been involved in. Obviously, heavy technology background, heavy telco background, and my job has always been to put them together. Right, always new things. I always get caught. Somehow, and I believe that maybe it was meant to be with new things. As I said, satellite broadband, ADSL, DSL, 3G, 4G, Internet of Things, and now the economy of things and blockchain. But it only came because I'm very proactive, right? So I became the blockchain leader at Vodafone because I looked at blockchain and telco, and I researched all of the use cases. I looked at the potential in my own time, and I used to sit outside my CTO's door. And every time he came out, I'd walk with him and I'd say, "Look, blockchain, look at this," And I was very proactive, and that's how it came about. But in terms of Vodafone, obviously, we're a global company. We are in India in a partnership now. We're big in Africa with Vodacom. In fact, we have one of the biggest banks in the world in Africa through M-Pesa, which is a bank
I
which
was supposed to say that. I was supposed to say that M-Pesa because that's a classical case study which we teach in management students for the last 2 decades. I mean, M-Pesa is a revolution which, and I think it was never been replicated also, the same success the way it had in Kenya.
No, it was the right solution at the right place at the right time to solve the right
Absolutely,
problem.
absolutely, absolutely.
And it's been massive for us. But we also believe that some of the new platforms that we have, uh, one of them being the digital asset broker, which I'm a co-founder of, and the chief product officer, will be also very big because it's going to change the way we interact with devices, and it's going to create a new economy of devices, which will link to AI. So that's a bit about my career in terms of blockchain. I've been you would have seen the 15-year anniversary of Bitcoin, right? How many of you knew about Bitcoin 15 years ago? Yeah, you can answer on the chat, right? How many of you bought 15 years ago, Bitcoin 15 years ago, or your parents bought
So
Bitcoin
all
15
these
years ago?
students and everybody who has there, you can put in the Q&A section. The chat is
Yeah,
disabled, but they can put in
yeah,
Q&A. Yeah.
yeah. And maybe if you did buy Bitcoin, or your
But
parents did
let me tell
15
you,
years
I
ago.
think 15 years ago, if you're talking about, because these students who are, this is right now live in YouTube, and
Hmm.
we have some students in Zoom as well. I think their age is around 19. So you're
Okay.
asking a student who will be 3 to 4 year old
No,
when
no, their parents. That's why I'm saying parents. So if your parents bought it 15 years ago, you have the famous story of the sort of pizza, and the person who was minting Bitcoin and wanted to see if they could buy a pizza with it. You know the story, right? And
yeah, 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 yeah,
and
absolutely.
and and they paid for it in Bitcoin, but they found one pizza person that would that would accept it. They paid for it, and that would be hundreds of millions now in terms of the value of,
True,
of
true, true,
the
true.
uh, of the pizza. So I'm only doing that to say that. But going back to my career, so I've been there from the beginning. So I remember, friends of mine mining Bitcoin on their computer, telling me it was the future. I thought they were absolutely crazy, right? This is sort of 2012, 2011, and I started looking at it. I managed to get mine one, but really started getting into cryptocurrencies and blockchain around sort of 2015, 2016, and I became especially fascinated with Ethereum. I was also heavily involved in a protocol called Aeon, which was a sort of a Ethereum child. Very fascinated in terms of programming smart contracts and seeing whether smart contracts could automate certain business processes in telecoms and finance, and was heavily involved in that. Heavily involved in a few startups, which use blockchain, number one to tokenize ideas, and another one to use digital identities for digital to manage them for digital businesses. And of course, the biggest one I've been involved in, which now has 60 million of funding, and came from an idea to something that's backed by two global companies in Vodafone and Sumitomo Corporation, is a digital asset broker. And the digital asset broker uses blockchain to provide digital trust between IoT devices, to give them an interoperable digital identity, and to then automate transactions either peer-to-peer or using fintech payment rails. And Vodafone has 160 million IoT devices. Of course, we've started enabling those on the platform. So I believe with those 160 million devices, we have one of the biggest blockchain ecosystems, period. But we're hoping that will grow, with other telcos becoming part of the ecosystem, a lot of big auto manufacturers and big device manufacturers. So we believe that there will be significant scale with IoT devices and blockchain. And we believe that there's also another important link, which is the link between IoT devices, which produce data, 75% of it not used at the moment, and what is going to need data to really take off and move forward? AI, large language models, foundation models, and we
True.
believe that the link between IoT and AI models especially where this can be to an extent real time, is going to be the next big stage that we have. So what I'm trying to get at is that blockchain does not exist in isolation, right? The journey, I've been there since near the beginning, and I bought crypto, I store crypto, I have crypto, but it's what I'm trying to get at is now part of a bigger mix, right? It's now part of a bigger digital operating system, which needs to work with the metaverse, right? The metaverse is the manifestation layer. You have AI, which is the intelligence layer, and the customer of the data that blockchain can secure. And then you have things like IoT and cloud and all of these technologies that come together. And I believe that is the future of Web3. Especially wallets and other technologies, mobile, all of these things, are technologies that blockchain needs to work with, and that's what I've been doing. So, as I said, two startups I've been involved in. One of them is about tokenizing ideas, and in fact, we were one of the first to look at non-fungible tokens because we were doing that before we knew what we were doing, right? In terms of having
Okay.
unique tokens for an idea. So you'd have an idea, there'd be 100 unique NFTs. We didn't know it was an NFT at the time, and then you could basically trade that equity, those tokens in the idea for people who either wanted to invest in it or who had services that could help bring the idea to life. And then the other one was about digital identities, and now we're in IoT. So that's it. I hold crypto. I'm now on the board of the Asia Web3 Alliance, which is a new alliance that has just started in Japan, which will be working with a lot of the big industry and small medium-sized enterprises out there. And yeah, I think we're just at the beginning of the journey. So over to you, Akhil. I'm at your disposal and happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, the kind of portfolio you have told us right now is complete chapter in the area of blockchain, AI, and IoT. And I mean that's huge. That's really. So let me start with the first question. See, David, I think let's go back 1 to 2 decades. We are almost at the same platform where we sorry. So we are in the same platform. I mean, an era where internet used to be a big buzzword in 90s. Okay, and there are huge technologies coming up at that time, and all of a sudden, people realize that there will be big applications coming in internet, and some of them worked, some of them did not work, and that's gave birth to Google, Facebook, and others.
I think Akhil may have dropped off. So I think Akhil, you were going to ask about the internet, and the comparisons between the internet and Web3 and maybe the internet and AI and the internet and the metaverse.
Sorry, this
Yeah.
actually because some issue happened. So my question was, don't you think the same thing happening now? I mean, there are a lot of technologies coming up. You have blockchain, you have AI, you have IoT, other things. IoT is not technology. I mean, I would say IoT is something which was already there a long time back,
It's infrastructure.
but it's an infrastructure. So, but something is still missing in a sense. If you look at the hype cycle in the last 3 4 years, huge demand came for what you call as cryptocurrency for some time. It gone literally flat in 2021. Metaverse came in, uh, had huge potential. But then all of a sudden in December 2022, you had ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, what happened that, uh, okay, please let me refine more better so that you can provide your view on it. All of a sudden, as ChatGPT came in, the whole world shifted towards AI. Now, technically, people know that all these things are elements of a bigger picture. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
you cannot say these technologies are different. But I don't know. Somehow the consumer and the investors are looking at almost different all the time. I mean, I don't know how. So my view to you is because this is exactly what the 90s was in the internet era. I mean, there are huge investment going in different products, And the surprising was Google was never thought of. But if you look at all the futuristic data of internet, what internet will be, nobody had put a bet on search engine. Seriously, I'm
Mm.
saying, and that became the big buzzword. Social networking was never been thought of in the internet. Email was the most important. I mean, that was the main investment for people. That email, e-commerce also came in, but nobody thought of social connection. I mean, that can be a big buzzword. 5 years down the line, I'm talking about 97 to 2002, when the dot-com crash and everything happened, the leaders which came out of internet was something else, what people thought of. My question to you is, when we are talking about blockchain, especially blockchain, let me start with blockchain and then we'll go to metaverse. Do you think we are going the right part at this moment? I mean, right part in the sense the right products are there in the market. I mean, you think that this is coming out the right way in the grassroots level because you are somebody. The answer I'm asking you because you are somebody was not only working as an evangelist, somebody who knows about blockchain. You're somebody who's working the product side. And do you think that we are really utilizing the potential of these technologies at this moment, or what is the and how the
Yeah,
consumer
yeah,
behaving?
yeah. It's an excellent question. And it's an excellent question which has a very complicated answer, which is manifesting itself at the moment. As I said at the beginning, I believe that this generation on the call are a very privileged generation. I think when you look at history, how the generation on this call reacts and how their careers and what they do go forwards achieves will be will be massive because it's going to be they'll be working in some of the industries that will redefine how we work as a society, how we work as a business, how we work in industry. So let's go to blockchain. Let's tackle that one head on, right? I think that blockchain would have achieved its objective when we don't talk about it, right? I think what has been happening is that over the last 15 years in the evolution of blockchain, it did start off, with a mission to, people were really fed up after 2007, right? And there was a lot of distrust for banks and what had happened, and intermediaries, right? And blockchain was, a project which was saying, okay, can I have a currency which is essentially governed by consensus or communities and consensus, and can I disintermediate the intermediaries in the process, right? And there you had cryptographic currencies, which is sort of blockchain minted tokens with cryptography, right, as a security. And there you have Bitcoin, and that was the aim, right? It was the aim was to be a medium of exchange. If you look at the functions of money, right, you have a store of value. Is Bitcoin a store of value? Maybe. You have a standard of deferred payments, right? So is Bitcoin a currency that you can store and pay people in later? I don't know, right? I think the flexibility or the volatility in the prices so far have made it not so attractive there, but it can do it. Is it a medium of exchange? That's a currency. Is it a medium of exchange? Possibly, right? But I don't see a lot of people paying for coffees or shopping or whatever with Bitcoin. And so when you look at the functions of money, and you look at the main sort of project that we have for cryptocurrency and blockchain, I think it has really helped us to reimagine finance. It has helped us to reimagine currencies. I think it has helped us to reimagine automation with smart contracts. But I believe it's only the beginning, right? And the cryptocurrency market, has taken off and it hasn't taken off. It's going against something that's been there for maybe 300 years. I think if we go back to industry, there's one date that our students should be aware of, and it's 1776. And there was a person called Adam Smith and the Wealth of Nations. And that was the start of the industrial world we have now, and we've been playing it out, with the economy and finance following that. And first we had the gold standard, then we had Bretton Woods, where America went away from the gold standard, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe when we look at the evolution of money and we look at the evolution of the economy, blockchain and cryptocurrency, 15 years ago will be a milestone in the evolution of that. Because what we're seeing now is because of blockchain and because of cryptocurrencies, we are now having central bank digital currencies, and we're now starting to have banks with tokenized deposits where you can tokenize money in your bank account. So I believe that although Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have not succeeded so far in becoming a currency in the sense that a medium of exchange, I think that they have disrupted the finance and money market, right? They have helped us to reimagine money, and they've added automation. We talk about some of the things that happened in the DeFi winter. There were two key things that happened. One was NFTs, and I think NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and digital ownership. The potential is only there. Forget the hype cycle. The fact that you can have a token, which is digital ownership of a digital thing in a digital world where we're moving to increasingly digital activity, is something that we couldn't do before in such an efficient way. And the other one was decentralized finance, where essentially, yes, it's less attractive now because of the interest rates for ordinary financial products being higher. The annual percentage yields that you have on DeFi products are not so attractive. But what it has done is show that you can have finance that's managed by communities that are completely managed by smart contracts in a decentralized way, which is massive. And you're starting to see a lot of fintech companies and traditional finance companies moving into this area now. So my answer is that although we haven't had the killer application of blockchain so far, we haven't. What we've seen is that it's started to disrupt the world. And I think that's important because it goes to another point. The internet only became successful when it embraced existing business and structures, right? So the internet did not have its own currency. The internet did not have its own regulations, so to speak. It didn't have its own geography. If you look at the internet, there are the sovereign geographical boundaries are still respected, and the legal structure in those countries are still respected. What it did was make new markets, provide new tooling, and provide new enablers. And I say that to say that for the for the blockchain journey, it was designed somewhat to be in isolation because it was designed to get rid of the intermediaries. And the intermediaries are everything around us, right? Governments are intermediaries, banks are intermediaries, regulators are intermediaries, telcos are intermediaries, Web2 companies are intermediaries. So it was designed in isolation to get rid of or to operate without all of the things we have now. And I believe that that's the weakness. It's a strength and the weakness. It's a strength because it's enabled us to have innovation that's shown us how we could do things differently, remarkably differently. We can do identity differently with self-sovereign. We can do finance differently with DeFi. We can do automation differently with smart contracts, and we can do currency differently with crypto, right, and tokens. But what it hasn't done was get adoption, right? If you look at the adoption figures, it's 8 billion mobile phones forecast by 2030. There's 5.6 billion traditional digital wallets, not crypto, traditional digital wallets forecast by 2030. There's 30 billion IoT devices forecast by 2030. I think AI, the forecasts are for an industry that's anything between 2 to 10 trillion US dollars. And if you look at crypto, we have 320 million crypto accounts at the moment. And if we go on the current trajectory of blockchain being in isolation, are we looking at 500 million by 2030? Maybe 500 million. So the penetration is nowhere near what it needs to be to really start having an impact on the world, right? And what is that saying? It's saying that that the fundamental approach for blockchain to be successful needs to change, right? So you cannot have a big bang. Everybody's going to move to blockchain. what you need is blockchain to start working with the other technologies, right? It's very obvious that it needs to work with mobile. Can we have mobile consensus? Can we have mobile protocols? Can we have mobile layer twos? Does mobile become part of the infrastructure with blockchain? Does blockchain become part of mobile infrastructure? What's the link between wallets? Part of what I've been battling for at Vodafone is, with our automated payments, is to say, why does a smart contract only have to link to crypto? It's crazy, right? You've got all of these financial systems, which, whether we like them or not, have products and reliability and penetration and sophistication and whatever, to do billions of transactions in billions of ways in billions of countries. And we have in blockchain a smart contract that only works with tokens, right? Which aren't that reliable. So why can't a smart contract automate payments on fintech? Why can't it cross the two? Why can't smart contracts be used for wider automation, right? So what I'm saying is the convergence of crypto and finance, so that you give people choice, but the same level of automation is something that would bring blockchain to the mainstream, where you start having blockchain smart contracts and DeFi type protocols working with fintech, right? So it's about convergence. It's about mobile. It's about fintech. It's about working with AI. It's about working with conventional wallets. And I think once we start, blockchain starts to move into that sort of multi technology approach, where we stop talking about consensus protocols and transactions per seconds and roll-ups and the technology. And we start talking about how blockchain mixed with AI, mixed with wallets, mixed with mobile can provide someone with 100 accounts and automated payment types, where they're automatically maximizing the funds in their accounts and able to transact them peer to peer, et cetera, et cetera. Then you start getting the takeoff. And I believe we're only starting to see through the crypto winter we've just been through some of that. So in answer to your question, I think the future lies with convergence, and that is going to be essential to blockchain. So until we have that, we will not have the killer application. But there's one thing I want to talk about as well. When you look at how blockchain started, it was about transparency, right? It was about putting power back into the people, giving transparency, not having all the power with intermediaries. And I believe that can do a lot of good, right? I believe that can do a lot of good. And we had this big project, Akhil, which you probably talked to your students about, which is banking the unbanked. There's 1.7 billion people who have no access to financial services, who can't do international business, who can't be part of the global workforce, who can't go in the metaverse, who can't buy crypto, who can't participate, right? They're excluded because of that. And a big part of crypto was to give them access to finance in the same way that we did with M-Pesa, right? Which was making the mobile phone into a point of sale or a wallet, right? But I believe we've lost track of that with blockchain. I believe that blockchain, has to an extent turned into a financial product, and I believe that is not the future. It's not showing the full capability of how it could transform things from a socio-economic point of view. I believe that blockchain, with its decentralized nature, with some of the innovation that it had, could start to be a more inclusive technology that gives people more access to business, more access to finance, more access to opportunities. And I believe we've lost that. And I think that is something I would like to see corrected, because that is where it will start to make a difference, not replicating what we have.
True, very true, very true. David, I think you have given a full circle of exactly how the blockchain really, really was a big promise for the great future. But somehow, not everybody, but at least a substantial part of it are losing the track because of a lot of uh, other products coming in, as well as the financial market looks more promising in terms of quick money. I would say that way, that you make quick money in the financial part of, as a product of blockchain, but the real use cases takes longer time, and that's as an investment you see a lot less. But also, before I go to the second question, I want to add slight views of exactly what happened in India as well. I mean, when the problem also was that when it came out as a blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain for that matter, when it came out, and people said that it is a decentralized technology, it will remove the control of a centralized authority. Now, the statement is, first of all, it is not completely correct in the business point of view. It is only technological point of view. But the
Not even
hype,
in technology, because you find that because I was one of those people saying decentralized, decentralized, and then you find that everything's going through centralized APIs, and
absolutely,
and that
absolutely,
there's a
absolutely.
centralized database there, or you're going through a centralized exchange.
True, true,
And
true,
so,
true, true, true.
so even from a technology point of view, it's not completely
Yeah,
decentralized. You have some of it,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And somehow the people who became the voice of blockchain, to be very frank, and some of them who may not have technical background to it, I'm not criticizing them. It's good that they promoted it. But they somehow also came out in such a way that if the cryptocurrency comes in, it will be the first decentralized currency where the government will not have control. Now that statement doesn't work with anyone. I mean, how can somebody will allow to adopt such kind of a currency? But government, you said to the government that it's not going to be controlled by you. I mean, that's not going to be possible. But it also came out with another idea, which now worked out in India. It's called CBDC, that's called Central Bank Digital Currency. We are one of the few first to start the massive rollout of CBDCs. Commercial banks already rolled out CBDCs, which is based on blockchain framework, but controlled by the government. I mean, in the sense, I mean, now the government has much more traceability, which is possible. But my point to you is that you have put a very crucial point about blockchain, which I really love. First time I heard somebody saying that the advantage of blockchain itself is the reason for not having it adopted so commercially. I mean, since traceability, transparency, decentralization, it looks very good on papers, but for business, it may not be something which people really want to accept quickly. I mean, that's one thing. But let me go one step ahead now. Okay, now let me go to the second question, which is one step ahead. When blockchain came in, metaverse came in. Now, before we get into metaverse, I want to also tell you academically what we know. Okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong because there are multiple definitions of metaverse all around. So I can be a wrong person as well. I'm accepting that. Okay, so the idea of metaverse came out much before what blockchain and everything came out. Okay, it was much of a virtual world than virtual reality. And when the blockchain came in, people realized that now because of the NFT and all those phenomenon came in, people realized that these images can become unique, it can be asset, or you have a digital asset. Now within a virtual world, you can have a transaction because now tokens are possible inside it, or you have a cryptocurrency moving around. And now technically you define something called as virtual world. That's what the metaverse, now newly conceptualized metaverse came out, that now you can have the real transactions inside virtual world because the blockchain can be the governing technology, AI can be the technology which creates the metaverse, and now you go inside it, you actually do the same thing what you do in the real world. So somehow that became the definition before the metaverse actually started. But I see when the metaverse came in, 90% of the business who are working in metaverse. Yeah, exactly. I think you have given the definitions here. So, yeah, exactly. Reality experience, economic business model, interoperability across users. Absolutely true. I agree with your point. Uh, but if 90% of the business were actually demonstrating metaverse in front of us, are actually providing us a VR experience, which was there earlier as well. I mean, now the graphic might have looked earlier better, and don't you think that will really deviate the business? I mean, in the sense that we are not going the right direction the way it has to move to. Over to you. I mean, your opinion, because you are in the trajectory of both the transaction. I mean, the sense blockchain and metaverse, and that's why I want your view exactly
No,
what you
no, no,
feel. Yeah.
Akhil. I mean, again, amazing point. I wish I could come to your class, right? Because you're hitting on the points that need to be discussed for sure. Um, so I think we got to look at the context of metaverse and why it took off and where we were. So to an extent, the metaverse happened, right? Or the Big Bang happened in 2022, 2021, 2022 when Facebook changed its name to Meta, when we were all in lockdown, right? So the whole world was in lockdown. And part of the what we were trying to do was saying, okay, we're locked down and we can't go around our lives. So can we do things virtually that we cannot do physically because we're in lockdown because of COVID. And that led to a lot of emphasis about meetings. So, people who didn't use Zoom before started using Zoom. People started having virtual dinner parties. We started having virtual concerts, because that was the challenge we had. COVID has presented a challenge to us technologically and from a business point of view to say, okay, we can't socialize in the same way. We can't travel in the same way. So can we do it virtually? And I think that sort of led to a lot of emphasis, with people wanting to invest in virtual solutions, and hence you had the excitement around the metaverse. And I believe that there was a lot wrong there, and I agree with you in the sense that people were saying, okay, we'll switch off the internet now, and then this big, massive metaverse, like a virtual version of the internet, will spring up, and we'll have persistence, and we'll all be able to move across worlds, and we'll do everything in there. And it's not going to happen that way, right? It's not going to happen that way, and we're not going to throw away the internet, and we're not going to have persistence across worlds straight away. It's going to take time. And that's why there's two main points I want to make. So firstly, in terms of the evolution of the metaverse or 3D or immersiveness, we have to be practical. And I believe again that Apple got it absolutely right with the recent launch of or announcement, not launch, of the Apple Pro headset. Because if you look at what they did there, it's what I call the embedded metaverse, right? The embedded metaverse is basically saying that there are some platforms, some ecosystems, some solutions which will be able to add value to their business, to their business model, to their value proposition by having immersiveness, right? So these could be, I think, social media companies. They could be companies like Apple platform, companies like Apple, where essentially, Apple having immersive 3D, VR, AR, mixed reality content or access to their content via a headset adds value. I mean, one of the most powerful things that you had from Apple was this idea of the space where all of your apps and everything can be organized, where you can communicate, where you can work. And for me personally, I travel a lot, being able to take one of those headsets onto a plane and turn that into a mobile cinema or a mobile lecture theater, with my AirPods, massive, right? So what they're talking about is existing content and adding a mixed reality or a augmented reality 3D option, embedded metaverse. Will that make sense for social media platforms? Absolutely. Will that make sense for collaboration platforms? Do you see WeWork and some of these collaborative working platforms doing this? Yeah, for sure. Do you see this making sense for retail? Yes. Right. So there are some areas where embedded metaverse, embedding, not transforming or taking over, but embedding metaverse in existing platforms and solutions makes sense. And that is the beginning of the metaverse journey, right? Embedded metaverse. We will then start to have some interoperability. So it could be that you have a virtual, a virtual embedded metaverse in Instagram, and one in TikTok, and one in other platforms. And it could be that you have a wallet there, and you have Meta tokens, and you have Instagram tokens, and you have WhatsApp tokens, and or loyalty tokens, and you want to be able to carry them across and to games as well, and start spending them. So you have portability of assets. Yeah, interoperability across platforms using one ID. Yes, that's going to happen, right? So then you start having interoperable metaverse, right? You have a metaverse where you have it embedded in different platforms and it becomes interoperable. And eventually down the road, where you have enough critical mass, you will start to have some convergence, right? Where essentially I can have a seamless experience going from Axie to Roblox to Facebook and some sort of payments experience across them, and with some persistence. And that will happen way down the road, right? But that is what I see as the evolution. And then coming to your point, what is the metaverse? So this is my definition here. So digital world which exists alongside the real world. So we're not all leaving the real world. It has to add value. We're only going to go into the metaverse where it makes sense, right? And it provides a digital operating system. So probably the most important word in my definition is operating system. Simply because, Akhil, the metaverse, in my view, will be the new web browser, right? It's going to be the new interaction point, as we saw with Apple, between us and content, right? Us and data, us and services. It becomes the new web browser. It's, we're not going to go on the traditional web browsers, but it's going to be a more immersive experience, and with AI, it's going to be a more intuitive experience of how we find content, how we interact with it, how we provide content, because creators will be producers and consumers in this new world that we're moving towards. So as the new web browser, as the new link between people and content, it becomes an operating system, because there's going to be a new breed of applications that are being built, right? And not the traditional applications. These are going to be applications which have a heavy amount of AI, where the experiences you have will be heavily personalized, and you won't be clicking on anything. It's just going to happen, right? And as an operating system, what will the metaverse need to do? It will need to pull in different technologies. So will the metaverse need to pull in NFTs and blockchain and wallets and AI and other types of technology into the applications that's built as that interaction point? Absolutely, right? So does it become an operating system? Absolutely. So in answer to your question, agree with you. Metaverse is not VR and AR, right? Those are technologies that are part of the operating system, just like digital identity world, just like tokens and wallets, and AI, and all of these things will be part of the metaverse operating system, that allow you to put the technologies together that provide the new basis of application. And I think that's the fundamental difference. And when you look at that interaction point, that new web browser, is not just limited to consumers, right? As you see, there's an industrial metaverse, right? There's an AI metaverse. There's a shared metaverse where you have the gig economy and the creator economy. And all of these things, the metaverse will increasingly become an interaction point between people, content, goods, and services. And when you look at it like that, you can see how it will become important going along. But more importantly, how it becomes a collaborative, conversive technology, right, which pulls everything together, not something that exists in isolation. And VR and AR are only one part of it.
Good point, David. I think you have hit a right point. Yes, you have pretty put out this fact that metaverse right now may not be what it looks like, but this is the future of internet, and this is the way that people are going to browse in the next coming future. Having said that, I want to can you specify exactly that how your industry, that is in telecom industry for that matter, because you have worked in British Telecom now in Vodafone, you know your competitors also very well, how they are trying to channelize these two technologies, blockchain and metaverse. What is their viewpoint for the next 4 or 5 years?
Um, I mean, of course, you know, telecoms companies are becoming digital service companies. We're becoming technology companies. We're becoming platform companies. And as such, technologies like Web3, blockchain, um, and metaverse cannot be ignored. Now, obviously, we look at the fundamentals, and I wanted to get back to this point, and I think it helps to answer the question. The fundamentals of blockchain, right? What is the fundamental thing of blockchain that it provides? Trust, transparency, and immutability. They're the same thing, right? Now, actually, people say, okay, blockchain provides trust. What's the big deal? I tell you what the big deal is. When you go to the airport and you want to travel, you pull out a paper passport, right, which is checked probably 20 times in your journey, and it's checked before you get on the plane, and it's checked before you go to the airport, and you use it to apply for financial products, and you use it to prove who you are and other things, right? A paper document. Why do you need that paper document? Because they don't trust you, Akhil, or me, or anybody on this call, right? So they need a proof. You go to rent a car, you need to prove that you have a driver's license. If you want to go and apply for finance, you need to prove your earnings. When you go into a shop, you need to prove who you are, your age. In some cases, if you're buying something like alcohol, and you need to prove you can pay for it, because a lot of the settlement actually happens if you use a credit card. You're actually not really paying immediately, right? There's a settlement that happens. So it's more proof that you have the money that is then authorized, and then the payment happens. So I say that to say that all of the majority of the business processes we have in industry today, whether it's online or physical, is based on a trustless process. Yeah, the process is about proving trust and proving the ability to pay and proving who you are and proving where you are. And that consumes 90% of the processes. Blockchain has the potential to provide automated trust. It has the potential to flip that. When you look at things like self-sovereign digital identity and verifiable credentials and WC3 standards and DIDs, decentralized identifiers, although it hasn't got a lot of potential, a lot of adoption so far, and we're seeing with European EI-2.0, the European identity wallets, that we're starting to see governments get behind this now. But what does it mean? It means that blockchain could change the way we do everyday things, right? It could, where you have a digital identity and verified credentials that can be automatically verified in the digital world or the physical world. Now, what does that mean? I could go to an airport and I could walk through, right? Because they could automatically check my travel credential. I could go and apply for financial products. They can automatically, with my identity and my permissions, check my financial credentials. They can check my driving credentials. They can check my credentials, my health credentials automatically. And what does that mean? You have the potential to have Amazon Go on steroids, right? Where essentially I can go through travel barriers, I can apply for things, I can do all of that without the big overhead of paper documents and verify processes where people are checking the proofs. That has the potential to change the world, right? Change our world in a fundamental way. So of course, where telecoms companies can start to bring that in, it allows us to streamline the customer experience. It allows us to then focus on AI, and intuitive technologies, which allow us to take that further. So I think blockchain, as a means of trust, should not be underestimated. And when you start extending that trust to digital ownership in the form of NFTs, where we announced a few things with NFTs recently, and you start looking at tokenized loyalty points, maybe even tokenized tariffs or tokenized post-pay bills. You start to have technologies that not only provide trust, but provide enhancements to the customer experience, and bottom line can lower our costs, right? So those are being looked at. You may already have seen a lot of headlines where we went with Lenovo and other companies on metaverse and different ways of communicating in the metaverse or using the metaverse to enhance communications. And also on the IoT side, industrial metaverse with digital twins. Those are big areas for us. And when you look at the challenge of how you make a call in the metaverse, it's going to challenge the industry, right? Because we move from circuit switch to voice over IP, right? So the majority of products like WhatsApp and Signal and Telegram are all voice over IP and messaging over IP. But the metaverse takes that further, right, to more digital to digital communications, more immersive communications, and of course it does pose a question: how do you make a call in the metaverse? How do you communicate in the metaverse? And as a communication company, that's something we need to be cognizant of. And maybe that communication is just having more immersiveness, which requires more bandwidth, which requires 5.5G, for example. So there's a connectivity evolution that needs to happen. But maybe you have completely new protocols where you have Akhil and David who are communicating digitally from my space in the metaverse to your space in the metaverse. Do I need to go over traditional mobile rails? I don't think so, right? So those are the sort of things that we're looking at, and we mustn't forget that the metaverse is a 5 trillion opportunity by I say 2030. I think I think it could be even more, right? And I go against the trend by saying that the opportunity could be even more, because AI and the metaverse are linked. I gave a talk earlier this week, and that was the big thing I was sort of driving home, is that the AI opportunity is going to be massive. Everybody's talking about AI. Akhil, as you said, it's at the top of the hype cycle, right? But the bottom line is that AI needs a body, right? It needs an environment. It needs to be manifested. We have this talk about 300 million jobs being lost to AI, and it will create many more. But how's AI going to replace jobs where you have a service attendant, where you have people doing that jobs? It needs to have a avatar or a persona, and it needs to have an environment that mimics the real environments where that can happen. So AI needs the metaverse. The metaverse is AI on Earth. It's the manifestation of it. So as AI grows, the metaverse will grow. And I believe that as the AI spans retail and social media, and it starts to span industry, the metaverse will accelerate. So I believe it could be a massive opportunity, even bigger than 5 trillion. And if that's the case, of course, we're paying a lot of attention to it because you need communication in the metaverse, you need messaging in the metaverse, and these are all areas that we're looking at closely.
Good point, David. You have really bridged the gap between what AI, metaverse, and blockchain will be integrating to, and how the future looks like in the 5, 6 years to you. Before we go to the next question, I want to also add one more thing that uh, you know when you say that metaverse is the next internet. So imagine this a kind of analogy that uh, Apple will have its own internet, Microsoft will have its own internet, Oracle will have its own internet. It doesn't work that way. And in a sense, what I'm trying to tell you is that a blockchain can be different, let's say, but AI also can be for different companies. But when you want something to be massive as the internet that everybody can access, it should be interoperable. More than interoperability, it should be a one island where different application works. I mean, that's how it should be look like.
Operating system.
Operating
That's
systems.
the yeah.
Yeah. If you look at if a consumer like me go inside the metaverse, I can go to the Apple Island, I can go to the Microsoft Island, I can go to any island, different application, different app ecosystem. But there should be one platform where I can go inside it. I mean, it's like internet. I mean, if you look at internet,
Mm.
there can be 10,000 companies working with 10,000 applications, 10,000 experience, 10,000 products. But that's one internet. In the sense,
Yeah.
the kind of visualization we do for the metaverse, it should be something like that, but which is not what I feel the companies are doing at this moment. I'm not
No.
saying I'm
Yeah.
right. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just giving a
No, no,
viewpoint.
no.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, and that is the embedded metaverse. But I think the reality is that to build a new converged metaverse will take time. I don't believe that the rendering technology is there at the moment. I don't believe the processing technology is there at the moment. I don't believe the standards are there at the moment. I don't believe the legal and regulation is there at the moment. We still don't know how, in the metaverse, and with AI, how we'll deal with copyright, how we'll deal with IP and trademarks, and for example, Decentraland and Sandbox, you can go and buy land in the United Emirates. I could probably go and buy land in Mumbai, right? But the government has nothing to do with it. And what's to stop another platform from coming and selling the same land to somebody else? The problem you have there is you don't have scarcity, right? Price at the moment and everything in our economy is determined by supply and demand and scarcity. Limited supply, high demand, price is high, quantity is low. With the metaverse, you have the potential for infinite supply of digital goods because you don't have a big cost of making them. So, for example, if in the metaverse, Harvard University was to open a medical school or a lecture thing, so that was just like going into the campus. What does the metaverse do? It removes geography. Right? You don't need to travel because I can go into my metaverse Harvard University lecture and it can be just like I'm there. The issue is that once they've put in the initial investment to make that immersive experience, the cost of acquiring additional people is very low, right? So you have a near infinite supply, and the demand will be relatively high, but it will be fixed to an extent by population and other factors. So what does that do? The metaverse effect of being able to increase supply, have near infinite supply relative to demand, lowers the price and increases the quantity. In some ways, that's good, right? Because what it means is that we can have much more people who have been to Harvard. It takes away the premium level of the brand, but it increases access and it increases the education of our population. But that's a very disruptive. impact, right, on our economy, because it will actually serve to lower the value of a Harvard education or how much you could price it. Disrupts economics. There's no scarcity. And the regulation to deal with that, the regulation to deal with the sale of land in a virtual United Arab Emirates or London, and regulated and limited isn't there, right? So essentially, we're not in a position to have that, that converged metaverse at the moment, and I think it's just evolving how it can. But I absolutely agree with you. Going forwards, I think the vision and how it will manifest will be to have that converged metaverse where you can port your identity across different worlds, where you can build applications across different worlds, and some of the the reasons why that can and will happen are two in my role. I think one of them is that one of the things about Web3 is that it's open source, right? Web3 is largely open source, and that's going to enable it to grow rapidly, right? Because that is how you get a lot of coding and investment and development. I think the other factor of the metaverse is that it will be increasingly built by AI, which is a new dimension that maybe we haven't factored into things that can accelerate the development. And maybe that means, Akhil, that we have the converged metaverse earlier. But at the moment, you're absolutely right. And one of the negatives of the Apple announcement was that the Apple Pro headset was going to cost 3,000 US. And I'll be the first to queue up, right, and buy it. I'll be the first in line when it comes up. But, are we then building a metaverse for the rich? Is that really what we want, right? And that's what we need to look at, access devices. For the metaverse to be adopted, it needs to be accessible. And there's 8 billion smartphones or mobile phones in operation. And that needs to be a way to access the metaverse, right? If you can't access it on your mobile, it's not gonna take off. So there's a lot of moving parts. I agree with you, a lot of things being worked out. But I believe we will get to the version of the metaverse that you mentioned over time.
So let me go to a smaller question before we take the questions from the audience now, because there are a lot of questions from the audience. So we'll do a smaller question. I hope you're not getting late, David. I mean, you
No,
have
no,
time.
no, no, no. I've got time.
Yeah, fine, fine. So one more question which I want to ask you, especially on the metaverse perspective, that you see any company's metaverse. I'm not getting into the negative of it or positive of it, but the basic part of the metaverse, the basic part of the metaverse is how can you hook an audience inside a metaverse? I mean, in the sense,
Mm,
it's like look at from the perspective of having an IMAX theater. Okay, you have a IMAX theater, you have created a IMAX theater, absolutely marvelous theater. I mean, it looks perfectly to see it and everything you love, but you're showing a boring movie inside it. How many times the customer is going to come? I mean, the
mm,
sense, nobody's talking about the content market inside metaverse. What you're showing inside metaverse? How you can you hook up somebody inside metaverse? I mean, let me put it this way: I took classes inside metaverse, and not me. There are many professors across the world who have tried, and the buzz gone down. The reason is the student is not able to differentiate between what is happening in the classroom and what is happening inside metaverse. I mean, because there's no much of a difference. So what happens? The real world looks much better for them because there's no content actually which has been taken off. What you are talking about right now, and we are talking about right now, the kind of the metaverse is still a distant future. But I feel right now it is really possible to have a content market for the current metaverse what you have, at least for current VR what you have, which is still missing. I feel. I mean, everybody's making a platform, but nobody's really working on the content part of it. People can be hooked.
I think you're absolutely right, and that was the positive. I keep going back to Apple because there was so much good things there. What they made sure is that every application, was would be available to be used via the Apple Pro headset, and also they started to bring in content in terms of movies with the tie up with
Mhm.
Disney and all the rest of it. So all of a sudden, I buy the headset, and it can enhance my my applications and everything in the Apple ecosystem, which was a very smart move, and that's why they held off, right? Because they knew that would be absolutely critical. Um, and I agree with you totally. We need to have the killer applications, but we should think about it this way as well, right? There's the entertainment metaverse, and we've been focusing on that. And I believe social media will be a good one because there's maybe 4 billion people on social media, and the metaverse clearly, or immersive technologies clearly enhance that experience, right? So you can see how it can add value. And where the metaverse is also able to work with Web3 and bring in tokens and digital identity and other Web3 capabilities, it could also start enabling us to have finance and payments journeys that we can't have now in social media. So I can see that there. But there's one point I wanted to add, which is about the metaverse being able to provide capabilities that people can't have already. So, I've thought about this a lot. And in terms of value add, we often pitch the metaverse at the able-bodied people who can travel, who have, who can do things, and the metaverse is simply a substitute or pitched as an enhancement to what we can do now. But actually, what about disabled people, right? What about someone who physically can't ski, or someone who can't run, who can't swim, who can't travel? Older people who want to experience playing tennis as they did when they were younger, who want to experience things again. The metaverse can make that possible. It can make possible the things that people can't achieve in the real world. And that is a value add, right? So I think maybe the applications need to be more focused on adding value and targeting people who can't do things physically in the real world. Because then the barrier is lower. You don't have a direct comparison. If you're disabled and you can't walk or run, and the metaverse provides you with an experience that allows you to feel an experience running again, to get away from depression, to travel, to do things that you can't do, then there's not a direct comparison because they can't do it in the real world, right? So you don't have that comparison. But I think there's a lot of emphasis on going for the big market straight away. Let's compete with physical concepts. Let's compete with physical learning. And maybe that's not the way forward. Even with physical learning, as I said, I mentioned Harvard University or Stanford or Oxford University, Mumbai University. People can't travel, right? So travel is a barrier. Travel is a cost, right? The metaverse removes travel. So to someone who can't realize that opportunity because they can't get a visa to go to the US or the UK or somewhere else, then the metaverse becomes an added value because they can have that education, but without the travel and the cost. So I think my point is the metaverse and the applications need to be targeted where it adds value, and I believe that will allow it to grow. Eventually, you will start to have these mixed reality experiences where the metaverse augments the real world, and where you have this interchangeable experience. And I think that will go down well. But yeah, the metaverse isn't going to replace the real world for everybody, right? It needs to be targeted.
Sure. David, I think that's a great point. So let me take the audience question. And before we have a concluding question for you. Mr. Lab Singh has asked you a question that how blockchain can be leveraged for mobile number portability. Is something which you do in Vodafone as well?
Yes, good point. So if you think about mobile number portability, it's part of identity, right? I see your mobile number as part of your identity going forwards. I believe it could be a key identifier in the metaverse as well, because in the metaverse, you need to be able to tie activity down to a organization or a person that has liability, and that you can have recourse to legal frameworks and legal justice with. So I believe that the mobile will be a key identifier in the virtual world. I believe that blockchain, where this is, where the mobile is essentially a decentralized identifier, could work nicely with that. But of course, it's about scale, right? It's about scale. And what we've seen is that with 8 billion plus numbers, it's probably 12 billion or even more numbers. In fact, more, because you include IoT devices, you've got hundreds of billions of numbers in operation that needs to be managed. The blockchain won't cope with the scale at the moment, right? It's not going to control with cope with the transactions. And this is why we sort of need in terms of infrastructure for mobile and connectivity infrastructures to work better with blockchains. I think Vitalik put it there where he was talking about mobile consensus and mobile being part of the consensus protocols for blockchains. I think in the same way where you have a better convergence of mobile infrastructure and blockchain infrastructure, we could get to the point where blockchain can add value by being a orchestrator or a store of decentralized identifiers, but it needs to work with the mobile infrastructure we have at the moment. So my answer is that blockchain can be part of it, and decentralized identities, self-sovereign identities, and DIDs are part of the solution. But it won't be a pure blockchain solution because of the scale.
Okay, fair enough point. So before we move forward, let me also ask you one more question. That is, it's a very interesting question. So what Ankit has asked is, is there any blockchain model or any blockchain platform which is currently very important and which is fascinating you so much, either in the digital currency market or the fintech
Mm,
market or any a particular blockchain which you have recently felt that this is a really good one?
yeah, I was very excited I like Avalanche a lot.
Yeah,
Of
launch.
course,
Okay.
my absolute I'm an Ethereum guy, right? So I believe that Ethereum is the way forwards, and we can see that with the adoption of Ethereum virtual machines and other platforms. But I like Polkadot, I like Avalanche. I think those guys are adding value, and we're seeing how these blockchains are starting to work together, and we're starting to get some convergence in terms of roles and responsibilities. Um, but for me, I think the absolute killer in decentralized ledger technologies and blockchain is the Ethereum virtual machine and the Ethereum smart contracts. And the thing that excites me the most at this point in time is account abstraction, because account abstraction smart contracts have the ability to bridge the fintech and the blockchain world, right? Where you have these externally owned accounts and you're able to use account abstraction to extract away gas fees and extract away some of the barriers to adopting crypto and token transactions. So I believe that the Ethereum smart contracts for that are really impressive. I believe that the roadmap is really impressive. Vitalik spoke about it at ETH Paris recently. It was the biggest talk. But watch out for that. If you're not into account abstraction and ERC 4337, um, then I would be paying attention to that. It's a game changer.
Okay. Okay. One more question, but I think that question also is my last question. That is, the students really want to know very curiously what the direction they should choose for. I mean, in the sense, David, let me tell you one thing, what is happening in India. I think this is happening in across the world. Okay. Last 4 years, the courses are changing every 6 months. The reason is the COVID time, the more traditional way of education, digitalization was the main topic. Then all of a sudden, people realized, no, the blockchain is something, the specialization we should take up. It's a big thing going to come up. Then all of a sudden, metaverse came in. That also became part of the course, and now AI coming in. Now AI, the natural language programming at the height of admissions and courses, but everybody is in a unpredictable dilemma at this moment. What the future look like? But the first time in education, you see so much changes in the last 4 years. I mean, you studied, and when we studied, the education changes in every 10 years max, at the max. Now it's like every 6 months the courses are changing, and the career is something people don't even know exactly how to pronounce, because the point is, I mean, let me very frank. 2022, I remember very clearly. March, there was a chief metaverse officer. There was a very glamorous post being created in many of the organization. All of a sudden, nobody knows exactly what it is. It's just completely faded away. And also, people are losing from the basics. I mean, in the sense that, ultimately there's a way the business works, and ultimately there's a way the technology works. The basic remains the same. I mean, somehow the people are going so much into the hype, and we are in the pressure to take it all on the courses. We don't know how to move forward. I mean, David, need your clarity.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, it is a big problem, and we're moving to a world. So what I would say to the people on the call is, think of yourself as a business, right? And businesses need to have products and supply that the world wants, right? In order to be in demand. And education is part of your product, right? It's part of what you have. And unfortunately, we're in the point where the education and the knowledge you need, is changing rapidly. But it has to be on a foundation. right? You need your maths, you need your English, you need your sciences, you need your core computer programming disciplines. So my advice would be get a solid traditional education in a respected discipline simply because that is your entry point, right? When we're recruiting, I'm looking for someone who's shown the commitment and the ability to have a undergraduate or a postgraduate degree or education in a traditional discipline and have got a good result, right? A 2-1 in the UK or a first class, because that shows me that you have the potential. But that's not enough, right? Once you've got that, then the next question I start asking is, what have you done since your education, right? What courses have you been on? How have you kept your education current? Because we have to accept that if you've done a computer engineering degree or whatever, that the technology is moving so fast, weekly or monthly, that if you are not the kind of person who is keeping your knowledge up to date, then you're of no use to me. What we're looking for is people who have a very traditional organization, but have shown the ability to keep that education and knowledge up to date and have the ability to take on knowledge very quickly to solve a problem, right? Because and then maybe move on and get other knowledge quickly, and that's what we look for. And we pay a premium for that at the moment. So it's very different. And sometimes I speak to some graduates and they say, okay, I did my degree, and I say, okay, what have you done since you did that degree 5 years ago? What have you done? Show me other courses you've done. How do you keep your knowledge up to date? Do you listen to podcasts? And they haven't. I'm saying, oh, well, you're not the right person for me because in the current world we're in, which is changing weekly and monthly, that's not going to help me, right? So hopefully I've helped to answer your question.
Thanks, David. I'm to be very frank to you. The intention of these conversations are to get a viewpoint. I mean, it's easy. I mean, not easy, but it's not something important to know what is metaverse and what is blockchain. I mean, the point is to understand more beyond it. I mean, that conversation really helps. And David, really, your conversation which you have done at this moment with us, I mean, really helped us. I mean, it will help me not only for the students, but also it will help me for the case studies which I'm going to have in the classroom. And you will be part of
Yeah.
my case study
No, no.
from next week and onwards. I mean, seriously. I mean, seriously. I mean, that's exactly how the work works. I mean, as a teacher, the only way we can learn is to let the industry speak. I mean, that's exactly the way learn it. And let me conclude the whole thing. So what we have gone through is that what is the future of blockchain and metaverse, what the industry is doing, and good point which I have taken from you is that some of the features of blockchain, by which it has been hyped, is itself is a negative as well. But at the same time, that's a major strength if it works out very well. And I think you have shared a book with I think it's a book or an article, a
Yeah,
book. Yeah, it's a book.
no, no, no. This is my book that's coming out early
Oh, that's
next
great.
year,
Okay, the
called
business
The
of
Business
metaverse.
of Metaverse, and it has a
Okay.
lot of AI in there and a lot of Web3 and a lot of Metaverse. But I kind of break it down, right, into the practical. So a lot of the things I've been discussing will be in detail in that,
Okay. So I'll issue it from my library as well, so that people,
for
so
sure.
students can learn. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Very seriously, sir. I will make sure that happens because this is where the industry speaks. So I need to have it. David, first of all, thank you so much for coming for this webinar. I'm really glad that you have taken an time
No,
to come
my
for it.
my pleasure. An opportunity to speak to this this generation coming up is one I can't turn down. So I thank you for inviting me, Akhil.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David. And I hope the audience have really liked it. And people who are on YouTube live, we will be in YouTube live. Also, the recording is going to be put up within next hour as well. So you can have this conversation saying every single